The Real Science of Frankenstein. Lightning flashes, limbs twitch, a monster rises. But was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, written in 1818, the world's first science fiction story? Today we'll uncover the real science behind Frankenstein's creation, the anatomy that could or couldn't work, and whether modern biology could ever bring something like this to life. Plus, we'll look at Guillermo del Toro's new film and how it reimagines the science of the soul. When Mary Shelley was 18, she spent a stormy summer in Geneva with Lord Byron, Percy Shelley and others. The challenge? Write a ghost story. Shelley's imagination, however, leapt towards science, not spirits. She'd read about Luigi Galvani's experiments making frogs' legs twitch with electricity, and about Giovanni Aldini, who jolted corpses to convulse before live audiences. Perhaps a corpse would be reanimated, she later wrote. Galvanism has given tokens of such things. Her story became Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, a warning about ambition, ethics, and creation itself. It's often called the first true work of science fiction because it's grounded in terrifying experimentation and not magic. Victor Frankenstein famously says in Shelley's book, "I collected bones from charnel houses and disturbed the secrets of the human frame." But could we really assemble a body? Let's break it down scientifically. The human body is composed of around 37 trillion cells, each reliant on oxygen, nutrients, and electrical signals. After death, blood stops, oxygen levels plummet, and tissues begin necrosis within minutes. Enzymes rupture cell membranes, muscle fibers lose their charge. The brain's neurons die fastest of all, something in around 5 minutes, before irreversible damage occurs. So even if Victor had stitched together freshly dead tissue, by the time he had finished, decay would have rendered much of the body useless. The immune system would reject any mismatched organs, and the vasculature, tiny capillaries only microns wide, would never reconnect spontaneously. Modern transplantation has advanced, but even today surgeons must reconnect individual arteries, veins, and nerves under microscopes. We can transplant hearts, lungs, even faces, but not entire mixed bodies. The immune rejection alone would cause catastrophic organ failure. Frankenstein's patchwork creation simply wouldn't function. To breathe, blood must circulate. To circulate, a heart must be beating. And to beat, it must receive both electrical and chemical cues. Defibrillators can restart a fibrillating heart, but only if tissues are still viable. Once cells starve, they can't recover. Scientists today can maintain isolated organs outside the body using perfusion machines, oxygenated blood surrogates pumped through arteries to keep tissue alive for hours. Researchers have kept pig brains metabolically active for around 4 hours after death, using a fluid that restored circulation and some electrical patterns. However, that doesn't mean consciousness returned, just cellular activity. Could we reanimate a whole brain? No, not yet. Neural networks rely on microscopic synaptic connections. When those collapse, memories vanish. Even if we switched on the neurons, there's no guarantee the mind would return. Consciousness as we understand it, it's not stored like a file. It's a dynamic process that dies with the brain structure. Mary Shelley's era was obsessed with electricity, the mysterious force that made muscles jump. Galvani called it animal electricity. Aldini's public demonstrations in London were infamous. He applied current to the body of an executed murderer named George Foster. The jaw quivered, one eye opened, the right hand clenched. Spectators gasped. It looked like resurrection. But these were just muscle responses, electricity depolarizing cells, not restoring life. Frankenstein channels that fascination. In the novel, Shelley never explicitly says how Victor animates his creation, just that he infused a spark of being. The lightning bolts we picture today came from stage adaptations on her novel later in the 19th century. But electricity is an apt metaphor. It's invisible, powerful, and in the early 1800s, barely understood. Even now, electrical signalling defines life, from neurons firing to hearts pulsing. We can stimulate comatose patients, trigger muscles in paralysis, even control robotic limbs via neural implants. In that sense, Shelley's spark was prophetic. Let's leap forward 2 centuries. Science today can't resurrect corpses, but it can grow organs, print tissue, and even create artificial embryos. We can 3D print heart scaffolds seeded with living cells, clone mammals like Dolly the sheep, and engineer mini brains called organoids. CRISPR technology edits DNA with precision Victor Frankenstein would only dream of. Synthetic biologists have built living cells with entirely artificial genomes. Scientists at Yale even restored circulation and some metabolic function in whole pig bodies an hour after death. So partial reanimation at the organ level is real. But assembling an entire human being from parts remains very unlikely at the moment. Why? The complexity, basically. Every organ depends on constant signalling from the brain, hormones from glands, and immune coordination. A stitched together hybrid body wouldn't synchronize. Its systems would compete rather than cooperate. Even if you could reconnect everything, the lack of a coherent nervous network and immune tolerance would doom the body within minutes. What about creating a body from scratch? Grown, not stitched together. We're a bit closer there. Tissue engineering could, in theory, build a custom organism cell by cell. But the brain, again, is the barrier. We can't yet grow one with a human consciousness, nor transplant one intact. Consciousness cannot simply be uploaded to new matter. The structure itself is the consciousness. In Frankenstein, Victor says, "Learn from me, if not by my precepts, at least by my example. How dangerous is the acquirement of knowledge." Mary Shelley's genius was not predicting technology, it was predicting the moral fallout. Victor creates life, but then abandons it. The creature becomes intelligent, articulate, even compassionate, but then vengeful when rejected. Shelley warns that scientific success without empathy leads to horror. It's a message that resonates today with advances such as artificial intelligence, genetic modification, and autonomous machines. Del Toro's long-awaited adaptation takes these ideas further. Set in the mid-19th century, it blends scientific realism with gothic beauty. Del Toro reportedly drew inspiration from real anatomical museums, the preserved Evelyn tables, for example, 17th century dissections of human nerves and arteries that have been pressed flat like art. His version doesn't glamorize the experiment, but studies it. Oscar Isaac's Victor Frankenstein isn't a madman with lightning rods. He's a scientist torn between curiosity and guilt. Jacob Elordi's creature is not a monster of bolts and scars, but a being of pathos, articulate, learning, aware. Del Toro's Frankenstein uses minimal CGI, emphasizing physical effects, flesh, bone, electricity, rendered with tactile realism. The science is not spectacle, it's tragedy. Let's do a full comparison. Let's compare Mary Shelley's novel with the real science today and with Del Toro's new film. First, let's look at the creation method. In Shelley's novel, 1818, Frankenstein was assembled from corpses and infused with a spark of life. Today's real science, organ transplants, stem cells, cloning, 3D bioprinting, but no full-body reanimation. Del Toro's new film, period accurate, electricity and anatomy, creation as an emotional crucible. Next, let's look at the consciousness. In Shelley's novel, Frankenstein's creature wakes fully sentient, learns language and philosophy. The real science is that consciousness can't survive neural death. The brain transplants remain fiction. In Del Toro's film, he concentrates more on empathy, awareness, loneliness, as far as consciousness is concerned. Third, the ethics. Shelley's novel, Victor Frankenstein rejects responsibility. His creation therefore suffers. Science today, bioethics are now central to science today. Gene editing, AI alignment, transhumanism are all part of the responsibility of science today. In Del Toro's film, the film mirrors parental guilt, creator's remorse. And lastly, how is the science portrayed? In Shelley's novel, science is all about forbidden knowledge. Real science today, science is a tool for understanding and healing. In Del Toro's film, science is a mirror for human frailty and faith. Mary Shelley's core idea was science outrunning morality. Today, this remains the same. Every new discovery, from cloning to AI, echoes Victor's hubris. If Victor lived today, what tools would he have? Gene sequencing to identify ideal donors, bioprinters to fabricate tissues, neural prosthetics to reconnect circuits, even artificial intelligence to simulate a mind. But each of these has limits. Printing complex organisms like lungs or brains requires not just structure, but function, billions of precise micro-connections. The Frankenstein problem is one of integration. Life is not a jigsaw puzzle, it's an orchestra. Remove the conductor and the music dies. Yet researchers are edging closer to redefining life. Xenobots, tiny living robots built from frog cells, can move, heal, and even replicate themselves. Biological machines coded by computers. That's today's real science. But none of it produces self-aware beings. Shelley's dream remains science fiction, though the edges are starting to blur. The unanswered question in Frankenstein isn't how Victor made the creature, but what made it alive. Shelley left it ambiguous for a reason. Life is not just chemistry, it's consciousness. Modern neuroscience still can't define what awareness truly is. Some theories see it as emergent computation, others as quantum processes in neurons. None really explain how identity persists. When Frankenstein's creature opens its dull yellow eye, it's the ultimate mystery, the moment matter wakes and asks, "Who am I?" Shelley's novel predicted every ethical debate of the modern age. Designer babies, cloning, AI ethics, machine sentience. Each reflects the same fear, creating something we can't control. The real horror isn't the monster, it's our reflection in it. Del Toro's film captures that perfectly. Science as salvation and damnation in one experiment. So, could a body ever be reassembled and brought back to life? The real science says not yet, and maybe never fully. But every discovery brings us closer to understanding what life really is. Frankenstein endures because it isn't about corpses or electricity. It's about responsibility, curiosity, and the cost of creation. If you could bring something back to life, should you? Or is some knowledge better left dead? Thanks for watching The Real Science of Sci-Fi. If you like these clips, then like, subscribe, and comment below. I'm Dr. Dan Stokes, and thank you for watching.